Thank you everyone for attending today. Great to see so many people online. I'm very excited about today's Lunch and Learn, and hopefully those that are able to can have lunch today on us. For today's presentation, very excited to have Prophix with us. Della, thank you for joining and being our guinea pig today for all our questions that come after the presentation. Today's going to be a rapid fire half-hour discussion. And what I really personally like about Prophix is for those on Dynamics GP or NAV or even Business Central, it's a way to get more out of your systems and further automate processes within your finance team and extend much of those analytics outside of the Office of Finance into other areas of your business. Once you build those models, and I see this with our clients that are using Prophix, once you build the models, then those models are used for budgeting. Those models are also used for forecasting. Those models can be used to accelerate your month-end close and create the statements, pulling all the pieces together. So it really does a great job of accelerating and automating the financial and data analytics that you have related to Microsoft Dynamics GP, NAV, or Business Central. So Della, on to the next slide. Everyone, this is Della. Round of applause. And
Nice to meet
I'll let you take it on from here.
Awesome. All right, well, let's jump into it. So I have a couple intro slides here just to walk everyone through a little bit about Prophix, who we are, kind of what we do at a 10,000-foot view. And then we'll jump right into the product, seeing as we want to get the most out of your 30 minutes that we have together today. So just a bit about Prophix and who we are. We've been around for quite some time, established in 1987. We are privately owned, and we have a headquarters in Canada. We have just over 3,500 customers now, and of customers who are on GP as well as NAV. So that's awesome. And we are built for finance by finance, and we are a fully cloud-based technology. So if you guys have any questions about how that works in more detail, we can absolutely cover that as well. And in terms of what we do, well, Prophix does quite a bit. Starting off with, just as Scott had mentioned, we are mainly a budgeting and planning tool. We offer, different ways of we can perform expense planning, personnel planning, revenue planning, and then bringing that into kind of a forecasting, more agile approach to planning, enabling contributors kind of outside of the Office of Finance, like he mentioned. And then being able to kind of tie that in a reporting and analytics front as well. So we're able to integrate with your actuals. So from a system like GP, we can pull in those actuals so you can do ad hoc reporting, distribute reports, create standard reports for month end, leveraging both your budget and actual data within Prophix. We also have a structured consolidation and close application. We have virtually unlimited versions. We have multi-currency capabilities, and we can perform intercompany eliminations and stuff like that to perform and help you perform your consolidation and close process. And then tie that all in together, Prophix has workflow and automation kind of built into the tool. So across all of these different applications that I've talked about, we can tie that in with workflow. So you can set up a workflow process for your budgeting cycle, you can set up a workflow process for your month-end reporting, etc. And then we also have a virtual financial analyst in Prophix as well. So this is kind of all-encompassing in the product, enabling you to perform anomaly detection. We also have insight capability, which is some of our new AI capability. We can drill into the insights of on dashboards and in certain reports to kind of allow the AI tool to give us that insight, and we don't actually have to be doing that analysis ourselves. And we also have a powerful task assistant that we can actually call upon to perform, run processes, run reports for us, so on and so forth. So that's kind of a 10,000-foot view of what Prophix does. And just a quick agenda of what we're going to go through specifically today. We're going to start off talking about dashboards and analysis. So how people outside of the Office of Finance can leverage Prophix and interact with their dashboard, with their different reports, and they can actually draw their own ad hoc analysis stories themselves without having to come to finance with all of their questions. And then leading into that, how we can tackle budgeting through workflow, all the way from kind of OpEx planning, we'll talk about revenue planning, and then even down to the detailed kind of personnel level, what that looks like. And then fast tracked to what if scenarios, so how we can easily populate different scenarios in Prophix, and we can do kind of driver-based, assumption-based scenario planning based off of that budget quite easily, so you can be a little more agile in that approach. And then we'll tie that all up with reporting at the end, and how we can kind of automate that process and distribution of your reports. So without further ado, let's get into the product. All right, so I am logged into Prophix here, and you guys should be able to see my screen still. So I'm logged in, and when a user logs right into Prophix, they arrive on their landing dashboard. So as you can see, this dashboard is filled with a variety of KPIs and metrics that they can kind of begin their analysis journey right away. And the nice thing with Prophix is we have kind of a centralized security approach. So based on what you set the security access to be by each user, you can leverage the same dashboard across multiple users, and they might only be able to see what you've given them access to. And like I said, users can kind of begin their analysis journey right away, seeing as these items are kind of fully interactive. So let's get started with that now. As we can see on the top left here, we have kind of a revenue variance chart. Users can interact with this to kind of drill down and see the detail below a specific quarter. They can see the breakout by month. And we can also head over to an attached report to then see more detail. So obviously we have an increasing variance here across the periods. Maybe we want to kind of investigate that a little bit further and understand where that's coming from. So I can head over to this attached report right away here. And with Prophix, all of these reports are kind of fully configurable by you. So depending what you want as your kind of identified as your rows and columns, this is all fully configurable and can be changed based on your requirements. So here, as a user kind of heads over to this attached report, we've given them some kind of filter options so they can perform some deeper analysis themselves. They can investigate maybe by channel. And again, we can see this kind of increasing variance now. It's being driven from that Western region, like we saw on the dashboard itself. So users can kind of flip through, and you'll notice that any of the comments that are attached, they are dynamic in the sense that they are attached to the data itself. So as I move between these different customer lines, our comments are updating as they are linked to the data that's associated with it. And then from this revenue report, users can still go a level further with their analysis here, and we can actually strip down the formatting of this report here. And I can go to a pivot table type view, and they can kind of continue that analysis story. So really the goal here is we want to empower the end users that are accessing these reports so they can easily leverage their own insights and conclusions themselves without coming back to finance and asking these kind of detailed questions. So again, you'll see here the same data set that we were just looking at on the report, but we've stripped down all the nice formatting and we're left with just the raw data. And again, we have some more filter options here. So beyond our customer channel, we can now filter by product. We also can change the account that we are looking at. So maybe we want to go and analyze something beyond product revenue. So I'm going to go ahead and expand this Western region here because I'm still curious about why this variance is so high. And users can easily see as we expand that, we're actually missing a budget for one of our customers. And that's interesting. And I can use some of my other business segments here. So we can actually analyze this information across my different product lines. So we can see that this Artscape customer, they're really only leveraging product line A, for example. And users can get really kind of intuitive with their own analysis journey here by dragging and dropping these different variables through one another. And now I can see by customer, we're only leveraging the distributor channel as well for this area. So beyond this, users are also able to kind of drill back to the underlying data beneath this story. So once they've kind of gone down this analysis journey, we can easily drill across to that kind of transactional detail here. And users can see a little bit more detail about these individual transactions. And right here, you'll notice, again, this screen is fully configurable by you. So the transactional detail that's relevant, we can kind of configure this screen as well to what might be relevant. But we can see that this customer has actually only been a customer since April. So it makes sense that they weren't included in the budget, but perhaps now that we've seen they're actually driving a lot of increased revenue for this year, we should probably consider them for next year's budget. And again, we also have the option to kind of drill back to that invoice detail as well. We have kind of linked invoice detail where we see fit. And we can users can easily access that directly from this drill across screen here. So that's really awesome. Users are really empowered here from this sense to kind of strip down that underlying detail and perform their own analysis quite quickly. And just to touch on that AI piece that I talked about on our intro slide, you'll notice we kind of went into that pivot table view from this report, but easily from here, because I have our AI enabled on this demo, I can actually go to show insights right on this report. And if I compare my actuals to my budget version here, this contribution insights, which is one of our AI capabilities, it's actually going to tell us right away based on this visual. I can see very clearly that Artscape had actuals and they were not actually included in the budget. So from that analysis we performed kind of by hand in the pivot table. Users are enabled to do that, but we also have this awesome tool with contribution insights where they can kind of get that analysis kind of broken down for them, which is super awesome. So I'll head back to my dashboard now. And this is kind of our first step in the analysis journey. So our users have been able to kind of draw some conclusions about some of their actuals so far, and they're a little more in tune with what's going on with the underlying numbers, and they can now contribute to their budget. So you'll see here in our dashboard, we also have not only metrics, but we also have some favorited reports that users can access that are assigned to them, and they also have some tasks that have been assigned to them through Prophix workflow. And for the purposes of this demo, these tasks are from the budgeting process. So let's go ahead and take a look at a couple of these as an example. I'm going to open up this OpEx planning template. Awesome. And just like I mentioned before on the previous revenue variance report, these budget entry templates as well are fully configurable by you. So how users are kind of used to maybe doing entry, what you identify as your rows and columns, that's all fully configurable by you as well. So just a couple of methods of kind of performing data entry here. Users can easily enter data in this report kind of at the monthly level, like so. We also have the option to kind of spread that data across the total year. So if I go over to kind of a total column and I want to enter in a value at the total level, Prophix will allow you to do so, but it will also ask you how you would want that data then spread across those monthly periods. So we have a few options of how it wants us to kind of handle that. So we can spread that data evenly, taking that value and dividing it by 12. We can spread it based on existing data. So in the case of this template, we've pre-populated this budget already with a combination of prior year actuals and budget data, which we can do in Prophix by a simple process, or we can also handle zero-based budgeting as well if you wanted users to kind of receive this as a zero blank template. But for some more complex spreading options, we can also spread data based on the trends or seasonality of a different combination. So if we know that this specific account might have the same kind of seasonality trend as a different account, we can spread data based on any of our other factors. And we can also include spread factors as well in this section. So if certain information might be spread based on square footage or head count or any other metrics that we choose to kind of add and include in your model, we can leverage it in this sense as well. But since I've pre-populated this already, I'm just going to spread this based on our existing data here. Awesome. And for your users to also kind of be empowered to provide that next level of detail, we can turn on for certain accounts users to provide kind of line item detail level entry. So for this advertising account, we've actually set it as a requirement that users have to enter this kind of detailed level when they're submitting their budget. This can also be set as an optional requirement or optional tool, or you can set it as kind of a requirement for certain accounts as well, depending on your desired configuration here. We have the option to do kind of driver-based budgeting as well. So taking a look at our lodging and airfare accounts, you'll notice that they were kind of whited out. We couldn't perform data entry there. And the resulting values are actually driven from some different driver-based options. So you'll notice I could quite easily head over to kind of an attached report that gave me kind of that driver-based information. I can refresh and change some values here, which will then change my overall kind of summary level budget back on this OpEx template. Awesome. Perfect. And then for sake of time, let's jump into kind of some scenario-based planning as well, and then we'll kind of jump back to this personnel piece. So from a scenario perspective, let's say we took a look from an OpEx perspective. We can also do kind of the same revenue planning approach as well for our revenue budget. But let's say we've completed that. And now I want to, do some different scenario analysis. So we have a completed revenue budget here. And based on Prophix's ability to kind of have multiple versions of your budget, we can have different scenarios. We've created 2 different scenarios here that we want to compare, change some drivers, and then compare to our original budget. So let's populate these 2 scenarios so we can go ahead and make those changes. And we can do so quite quickly. We have this included as a process step in our workflow. And we can just let that run for a second here. And we'll go back to our template. And we should get a notification when that's been completed. Perfect. So now that that's done, I can refresh, and you'll notice that our scenarios are populated right away. So the benefit here, scenario-based planning can be tricky in Excel when you're constantly copying over data. But in Prophix, by running a simple process, we can easily copy that budget data into new scenarios, make some changes to the information, and we can easily compare them kind of side by side in a report like this. So let's say we change some drivers up here. If I refresh, we can then see kind of the impact, what that would look like on our bottom line against our original budget. That's awesome. So just to jump back to this OpEx piece here, the last piece that we haven't contributed yet was kind of the payroll cost detail. And if I try to enter data in here, we're actually blocked from doing so. And that's because this is actually populated at a more detailed level. So in Prophix, we have the option to kind of do detailed planning as well, in this case referring to personnel planning at the employee level. And we have a centralized calculation approach where we take an extract of your employee list from kind of your HR system. This can be populated through a process. They don't have to be manually added by you, but we leverage different attributes or characteristics about each employee, such as their hire date, their salary information, their department, to calculate out things like earnings and benefits and tax that can then be summarized on that OpEx template. So you're not having to do that kind of at the summary level, we can actually take the detail to give you a more accurate budget. So if I change some information here, I know Cheryl's going to be getting a raise next year. I can actually go ahead and update my finance model with this information. And when I go back to our budgeting template, you will see here when I refresh that information has now kind of been posted to this view, and we've kind of completed our budget from this perspective. So those are some different ways of how we can kind of decentralize that planning approach and distribute these templates out to users. And based on their security, like I said before, that we set up that's like centralized across Prophix, based on what we've assigned each user, they might only have access to do data entry for the certain departments they have access to, allowing you to still leverage the same template. Users will just receive that template and only have access to their one department to perform their entry on. So saving you a lot of time of having to create multiple copies of spreadsheets to collect that information. Awesome. And then the last piece that I wanted to touch on here was from a reporting perspective, what this looks like once we've kind of contributed, we've created our budget in Prophix, we've had kind of users outside of the finance world as contributors to all of these different templates. Well, how do we put this all together, and how can we create reports in Prophix and distribute those as well? So let's take a look at some examples of financial statements we can produce out of Prophix as well. Again, all fully configurable by you. What we identify as kind of a summary level, what you want in your rows and columns. We can also attach more detailed reports, so users can have kind of a direct analysis story, again, from certain reports. So looking at this, we're kind of looking at a summary view of our 3 different statements here. But if I head over to my attached report, on the income statement side, we'll see kind of a more detailed breakdown of the income statement. Users can come in here and add comments to their different variances. We can flip between our different departments here and entities if we have those. And that's awesome. And then from the collection of these reports, they can also be easily distributed outside of Prophix as well. So let's say you have a month-end reporting package that needs to be distributed each month. Prophix can put together those items in a report binder as well. So looking at some of those example reports that we had created in Prophix, we can combine those with external files as well. So Word files, Excel files that might have additional narrative or kind of intro discussion points. They can all be attached and grouped together here. As well as identifying a specific distribution list that you want this package to be sent to every month. And this can be individual users or user groups that are created from that security kind of application. And then these reports can be distributed either on a manual basis or on a scheduled basis if they happen kind of every month at a certain time frame. And let's go ahead and take a look at what that report package could look like. And the other benefit here is by doing this in Prophix, that security, centralized security that I've been touching on, where users only have access to the departments or the accounts that you have given them access to, that goes beyond Prophix as well. So when they've been sent these report packages, that security is also respected in these reports as well. So if there's a certain page of a report that a user doesn't have access to, then that page of the report will be omitted in the package that they are sent. So that's great. It saves you a lot of time preparing, multiple versions of the same package every period as well, because Prophix takes care of that for you through security. And here we have some of the familiar reports that we just looked at in Prophix. Awesome. So we've covered a lot in the last 30 minutes or so. That was kind of a 10,000-foot view, but I wanted to give you a bit of a flavor of everything in Prophix. Seeing that we have a couple of minutes left here, why don't I go ahead and share with you our option also from kind of a forecasting perspective. So we talked a lot about, from a budgeting perspective, how that works and how we can easily populate different scenarios, but how does Prophix kind of manage reforecasts and stuff like that? So great question. If I open up this OpEx reforecast template, like I mentioned, Prophix has virtually unlimited number of versions that you can have in Prophix. And forecast versions can be pre-populated with, a prior budget or a prior period forecast, which enables you to kind of do a rolling forecast and empower you to, perform this process a lot more frequently in a more agile way. So as we can see here, we're looking at a 3+9 forecast. And because of our version control in Prophix, we're actually able to lock down the months of actual. So if a user tries to come in here and enter data in one of these actual periods, they're blocked from doing so, still giving them the ability to then make changes in this forecast version without the concern or worry of your original locked down budget ever being touched, since we're dealing in a different version altogether. And to add to that, the spreading methods that I kind of talked about before are quite easily used as well from a forecasting perspective. So if I wanted to spread again from that annual level, Prophix will actually respect the seasonality again of the existing values that might be there, while also taking into account that there are locked down actuals. So if I just spread based on the existing data there, that 6,000 value, what it does is it's actually going to subtract the actuals that we've acquired or locked down so far from the 6,000, and then it will spread the remaining amount across our planned periods here. So really taking the logic out of, the worry of maybe broken links and data entry mishaps, like we see sometimes in Excel. Users really just are concerned about the value they're entering and validating it, and that's really empowering your end users to be contributors and decentralizing that planning process for you, so it's not all the burden of finance to kind of put all these sheets together. Awesome. So that is Prophix in a nutshell from a very high level. Feel free to, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. I'd be happy to kind of answer anything in more detail for everyone. But for that, now I will pass it back to Scott. I think he has some closing remarks here.
Great. Thanks very much. Yeah, there we go. Bring my screen across. That was fantastic. The reporting packages definitely saves a lot of time and effort. Being able to put those together and create 6 different versions of the same package because you have different regional leads or different department heads. Those have been a real time saver for some of our clients. And the scenario planning, it always blows my mind of how many cool things you can do when you build those models. I know there's one client of ours that did a lot around labor planning, and that's a whole other module, but they had a number of different aspects where you're almost creating your own algorithm to guess and calculate, okay, here's what the impact's going to be for each additional headcount. And it's really an amazingly mature tool. So let's wrap up today's discussion. Thanks very much again, GP Support North and Endeavour, 3 lines of business, advisory services, ongoing implementations, supports, upgrades, Dynamics GP, Business Central and NAV, as well as a very strong CRM practice and cloud practice, including Microsoft 365, Office 365, and Azure. On to the next slide, and I'll talk about our contacts. Feel free to reach out to Trish, James, or Steve in our team. Same 1-888 number, or you can find us online, extensions. And for those that are existing clients, feel free to reach out to your Endeavour consultant or reply to our webinar invite. And then, of course, Trish, James, and Steve are here to help. So with that, thank you very much, everyone. Have a wonderful day.